Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the newest album by Future, The Real Me. This album was one of the most hyped up albums of the year so far, one of the biggest trap artists of probably I'd say our generation, probably the last generation too, dropping another album. And there's a lot of hype around it. I mean, especially with the recent teasers he's been showing, that unreleased what's it called, Snow and Skyami song. It wasn't called Snow and Skyami when it came out, it was called Ready to Slide. That's what everyone thought it was called. I'll get to that in a second, though. I was a big fan of it. I'm a huge Future fan, and I was really excited for this. And I also, I listened to it on the day of release, on the night of, I should say, at midnight. And I was, to be honest, a little disappointed. However, we'll get to that in a second. Subscribe. You should subscribe. I know everyone who isn't watching this isn't subscribed. That's just how the statistics work on this channel. You've got to subscribe, like, comment, give me some engagement, do this and do that so the channel gets out to other people. If you make it to the end, subscribe too. Hit the bell. I do these all the time. Maybe it's supposed to have been every day. It kind of hasn't been every single day. I've had to, skip a couple days and miss a couple just because stuff is going on. Life's a hoe sometimes, but you should subscribe. Apologies for my lisp. I have a mouth sore in my tongue, or on my tongue. It's causing me to lisp. Anyway, let's get into the actual album. The Real Me by Future, the reason it is so disappointing, for some people it might have been the no features. For me, on paper, that's not that bad of an idea until you realize that this album is 22 tracks long. 22 tracks of just solo Future, at least in my opinion, is not that good of an idea. He's done it before where he's been mostly solo. However, all the way, this is, I want to say, the first time he's ever really done this. I mean, even if you count, sorry, I had to pull up the album. I always forget to do that. Even if you count Mixtape Pluto, excuse my ESPN notification, but Mac McClung just signed with someone if you're curious. Anyway, 22 tracks of just solo Future. It does not sound like that good of an idea, no matter how crazy the production gets, no matter how crazy certain things get. And also, he literally said, who all do y'all think is featured on my album? And then dropped an album with no features, which is an ultimate troll. And it is funny, and I do think it is impressive that this guy dropped an entire project, sold like 100, I think it was like 130,000 first week, no features, went number one on Billboard, went number one on a lot of these different charts. It's very impressive. Went number one on global charts, very impressive. If he would have had features, probably would have sold a lot more, especially if Drake or someone was on here, would have done really good, would have done really good. This album's biggest problem for me is the amount of steam it loses the longer it goes on. Not only did he stuff the first half full of the best songs on the album, but he also put in the second half. It just felt like he was trying stuff, like, and none of it was sticking, none of it was working. The first half of this album is the most part of what made it onto the vinyl. The vinyl for this album that I own, if you watched the last video I did, or no, it wasn't the last video. I did like a video showing off all my vinyls, and one of them is the alt cover of The Real Me. There's only about half the tracks on that album, but they're half of the best ones, and there's like I think it's two unreleased songs that are also really good that probably should have made the record instead of this other half. I think if this album was cut in about half, honestly, you could argue 2/3 of it just cut and made this like a little mixtape, probably would have been a lot better, you know? And I do think, the title, The Real Me, it kind of sounds like he's going to get a little different and not make normal Future music and be a little introspective, a little mature, but I wasn't going to fall for that facade, especially when I seen some of the names on the track list. I mean, Konnichiwa, come on now. We all know what that was going to be about. Anyway, this album starts off really strong. Fucker Interview, I can't talk. Fucking Interview is great. 1 2 is a pretty good song. That is the second half of the Ready to Slide leak that happened. He cut that song into two songs that are two of the best ones on the project. I wasn't the biggest fan of 1 2, but I do think the interpolation of him like doing that Freddy Krueger thing, like the 1 2, that, it's hard. And when I was listening to it late at night, lights off and stuff, it was hard. No Misery is a good song. California Girls is good. Tank Top Pluto is one of the best songs on the album. It's so hard. Beat is crazy. He gets on there and is just flowing, flowing, flowing. I think when this album is at its highest, it is really at its highest. I think it is really good music, some of the best songs of the year, but it's the lows that are painstakingly low and painstakingly boring as this album goes on. Wait Up is another banger. Konnichiwa, Trenchcoat, and Snow and Skyami is probably the last of like the really good songs in a row. Those are three. That's a good 3-track run. If this album was just fucking Interview to Snow and Skyami plus like 2 or 3 of the other good ones that I like, it probably would have been a much better record and got a lot better of a praise, I would say. Because if you go to Build a Bitch, and Build a Bitch is a fine song, it's very mid, feels like filler. Radio is a banger. That was the single from this album. I like it pretty good. I listened to it a pretty good bit. Money Over Everything and Off the Hinge are, again, Money Over Everything is the main one that is really good. And I like Off the Hinge. It's okay. It's not crazy, but it's okay. Money Over Everything is great, though. Then you go If I Could, Big Moment, Cast a Spell, Kick, and Hollywood. That that right there, when I was listening to this album, is about where I like mainly lost interest. You have one, two, three, four, five songs that just don't need to be on this album, that are just there to just stuff it to make it extra fat. Because it's just, you've heard all of those feature songs, you've heard better ones on different albums that you can just go listen to, and these are just worse than those. So why? There's no reason for these songs to be on an album. There's no reason for them to be out. All right. Then you go into Feeling I Give, which is a fine song, again, and then you go to Alice, which Alice is, I don't even want to talk about it. And then Eye to Eye is, again, not terrible, but you've heard that Future song before. Alice, I don't know. The Pharrell beat is cool and it's pretty good, I think, if you just take Future off of it. I don't know what in the world made him make that. I get it. It's supposed to be party music, and you can say that about Hollywood and what's the not even 2018. Not even I don't know if I mentioned 2018 yet. I'll get to in a second though. Hollywood, I'll talk about Hollywood for a second, is literally just the same thing over and over again, and like it's different, but I don't know what the point of it is. Future just tried to make like a club song that just didn't really take that much effort, I guess. Same with Alice. Alice is like a club party song that I just don't, in my personal everyday, I'm never gonna listen to it. I think in the moment I was kind of coping when I was listening to that album. I was kind of like, you know what, this is different. It's unique in terms of Future music. I don't mind it. It's kind of okay. But the more I've listened to it since then, I've listened to this project since that, it's not good. I don't know. I think I just had first listen jitters. That's for Alice in Hollywood. Kick was a snippet that he showed. I want to say it was like one of the first ones he did, and that song's fine. It's a little boring. It has that mixtape Pluto like thing where like some of the songs are kind of just like mostly beat and him like just not good, doing kind of the bare minimum. Then there's like little parts of him flowing, and the parts of him flowing on Kick are good, but the rest of it is kind of boring. I would have liked to hear. There was a snippet he posted called Styrofoam. I would have liked to hear that song. I don't know where it's at on this album. It's probably better than half of the second half track list. But 2018, we'll talk about 2018. I think, maybe the beat on this song is really good. I actually really like the beat on 2018. However, the rest of it is like, I really thought he was gonna stop doing the voice at a certain point, and he never stopped. Part of what makes the King's Dead like song good, his verse good, is because he had never done something like that. It just came out of the blue, came out of left field, and it didn't last that long. It was like a little quick thing, and kind of fire. On that song, it was fire, but then you put it on this one, and it just doesn't work whatsoever. I do think even on some of these really good songs, like a lot of the ones I mentioned at the beginning versus a lot of these like later ones, would have worked better with features. A couple of them maybe, because I still think if you put these as just Future, it's still a lot of Future. A lot of just Future. You know what I'm saying? If you put some features on here, I do think it makes it better. I'm not saying it has to be Travis. I'm not saying it has to be 21. I'm not even saying it has to be Drake. Just has to be another voice to break up some of the monotony. If you cut this album down to fuck an Interview, 1, 2, Snow and Skyami, Tank Top Pluto, Wait Up, Konnichiwa Trenchcoat, No Misery, Radio, throw California Goals Girls in there. We're at 9. Money Over Everything, Off the Hinge. And if you want to be picky, you can throw in like Feeling I Give and Eye to Eye maybe. That's 13 songs where the most of them, did I say fuck interview? I think I did. That's 13 songs that are significantly better. 13 or 14. I kind of lost count midway. But that would have been a significantly better project. Even if there was no features, I still think that would have worked really good. If you want to make that album a little longer and make sure it still sells, throw in some features. You know what I'm saying? But around, where is it at? After Snow and Skyami and okay, Snow and Skyami, that song is good. And then Build a Bitch made me loot, that's the first kind of not as good one. After Off the Hinge is where I really just, the whole second half of the album just kind of got cut off for me. And I mean, it's not the end of the world. I think some people are over exaggerating a little bit. I think this is just like a better version, or at least a more evolved version of Mixtape Pluto. And I think he should kind of get away from that, because the songs sound like a lot quicker, a lot less like well made almost. Even the ones that I really like, they're still not as good as some peak Future songs. Like not even they're not even really in that competition. The best of this album, which is pretty good, the best is not gonna it's not in top Future conversations. If I had to pick a best song, it's either Tank Top Pluto or maybe like Konnichiwa. That like let's just say it's Konnichiwa. If you take that best song versus the best songs on all of his other projects, Konnichiwa is probably one of the first ones that's going to get cut. And, that kind of breaks my heart. If I had to give this album a rating, I give it a 5 out of 10. It's just a mid album, it's very mid. First half is good, second half, not so good. It's literally the definition of just middle of the road. And I just wish it wasn't like that. Hopefully, maybe we get another Future. I keep shaking my desk, I'm sorry. If some people theorize that, this first album had no features and he's going to drop another shorter, like, mixtape before the end of the year with all the features on it, maybe he does that. I don't know. If he does, I'm still going to be excited. I love Future. I'm still going to be excited. If you made it to the end of the video, I greatly appreciate it. I'm very thankful. Subscribe.